everybody. Welcome back. YouTube.com/GeekLoud, Thursday night, 8 p.m. So it is the Gaming Enforcement Agency this evening. We only have one co-host, and that is Bully. Sir, how are you this evening?
Well, sometimes you only need one, Troy, so I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm doing well, mate. If you recall, I think we did the first 32 episodes with just two hosts, so we'll be just fine. But heads up to the viewers, I don't think we're going to be monitoring that live YouTube chat, unfortunately. But I can tell you, viewers, how this show is going to run. First up, we have games, interrogation, and deliberation. It is the seven games we have been playing this week. We'll go in detail, and you'll get game footage on screen as we discuss it. And then we're over to the newsroom. Bully, how many stories have you been able to round up this evening, mate?
We've rounded up 6 for this evening, so probably focusing on one game in particular, but I'm sure we'll get to that very shortly.
Beautiful work, mate. And then, audience, it is everyone's favourite segment, the Standoff. And, Bully, can you please tell us, mate, what are the constraints this evening?
Well, it was probably a bit of a choice for mine, which would be the first one for a while. Normally, Unky jumps on this one, but given my sort of love for RPGs and some of the value that we've been getting this year, including what I would consider almost instant classics of Final Fantasy 16, Starfield, and Baldur's Gate 3, we ask what other classic RPG would you like to be remade for current consoles?
Nice. And I've just had a thought of one that isn't in the list. Dang it. And how many entrants do we have, mate?
Well, we have 5, but I'm sure we can throw a quick 6th one in there if you can manage to remember it when we get there.
Not a chance. And then it will be audience integration. As I said, only with 2 of us, we can't monitor the YouTube chat live, but we will round it up at the end of the show, assuming it doesn't error out as it has the last few weeks, and our apologies for that. Without further ado, here we go with games, interrogation, and deliberation. First up this evening, we have what has stolen my soul, Bully, is Baldur's Gate 3. Man, have I been enjoying this one. Before I launch into what I've been doing, man, have you gone back hands-on with it this week at all?
Only a little bit. We'll get to the couple of games that have sucked most of my time this week. So I've only probably put another hour or so into it, but yeah, still enjoying it as much as I did. I know when we spoke about it last week, I was sort of rave reviews for it. So hopefully you can give us a bit more of an update on your thoughts.
Oh, absolutely, man. And check it out on screen here. I don't know if you're this far into the story, but have you recruited, and I don't know his name here, but he's like a jester that you free from the goblin camp. Have you gone into that goblin camp yet?
I have gone into the goblin camp a couple of times, and I get absolutely destroyed. So,
have I got a tip for you?
Well, I did find one little bit, and this is probably not giving too much away because it's part of the gameplay style. Is that I did find a little way that you could sneak in and sort of try and go about it a bit of a different way. But it was when I was very low level, and I think I only had one other character in my party, so that didn't really help me either.
Oh yeah, that's a tough play.
So I've now got 4 characters, and I'm probably leveled up another once or twice. So I think I might be okay to go back there and try that sort of alternate path into the goblin camp.
Well, mate, I've got one heck of a tip for you, but because it's on screen now, first I'll ask you: have you been using the what are they? The tadpoles that you get off people that you can use to level up your skills, but your party in the game very much tells you, no, this is a bad idea, don't do it. But I have been. Have you been doing it at all?
No, I think, and that was the reason. I think I said, they go, oh, you shouldn't be doing this, and I go, yeah, maybe I shouldn't. I didn't realise it would allow you to upskill that your character like that. I thought there'd be some other side effect.
Well, I'm assuming at the end of the game, I'm going to get a big slap on the wrist for having done it all game. But I tell you what, man, there are some cool buffs in there, health buffs and speed buffs and all that sort of stuff. So I highly recommend it. And I know you're on a bit of a delay now, man, but on screen now, you can see the jester I freed from the goblin camp. And then when he's back in your camp, he'll have a crack at taking the tadpole out of your head with an ice pick through the eye. Now, I'm going to spoil what happens, but I highly encourage you to go through with it. He ice picks your eye, and then he pops your eye out, so you end up missing an eye, but then he gives you an artificial eye that allows you to see invisible characters. Like anyone in stealth mode is no longer in stealth mode for my main character, thanks to the false eye he gives me by accidentally cutting out my real eye.
Yeah, okay. Well, it's funny you say that, because I think I've run into 2 other characters that have said we can take it out of your head, but there's going to be other side effects. I can't remember what they were off the top of my head, but very similar things. So it doesn't explain to you what the benefit is when they initially say it. It just says, oh, we might have this side effect, but and I haven't taken up those options. But clearly, if you do, then I'd imagine, based on what you're saying there, that there is some other bonus or perk that you get out of letting someone drill into your head.
Yeah, well, as said, I had no idea what was going to happen, but as I did with the tadpoles, I've decided the correct way to play this game is to do the opposite of whatever the game's telling you to do. So the game's telling you not to use the tadpoles, use the tadpoles. The game tells you, this guy doesn't really know what he's doing. Do you want to let him go with your eye? And you get 5 chances to back out before your eye pops out. It's grit your teeth and bear it, or tell him to stop. And I'm like, no, just keep going. And then at the end, bop, out comes your eye. And I'm like, oh, that might have been an error. I might have to reload. But then invisibility vision unlocked. And I'm like, hello, we're rolling with this. Once again, mate, I know you're on a delay, but on screen now, mate, you can see me approaching the goblin camp. And my pro tip is my main character has the ability to do the icon's a pig, but it's grease. It's like you throw essentially a grease bomb. Yeah, and so what I did was just stand outside the fort and drew them to me. But as they were coming towards me, I throw grease at there's cauldrons and stuff in there. If you drop the grease and any part of that grease is touching fire, it erupts the whole area in fire. So I ended up just slowly pulling enemies. And because I lit the whole entryway on fire, as they'd dash towards me to attack me, they'd run straight through the fire and be really weakened. So by the time they got to me, it was 1 or 2 hits and they were all dead. So there's, it's an onslaught. It's a massive army you're facing, but the whole army is dumb enough to run straight through that fire and almost be wiped out. So so
you don't even need to trick them. You just
go straight up to the front door and knock on it.
Light it up and they just run through it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
So that worked beautifully, man. You can see it right here on screen, me throwing the grease and then bang, up she goes. And then instantly I'm taking, throwing damage down on the enemies. And then all my party have, crossbows or arrows. And we just stand at the bridge and shoot them as they run through the fire. And it's the perfect, I cleared the entire goblin camp by using that grease because there's little, cauldrons or whatever all throughout that goblin camp. So everywhere you go, you can just set this massive fire trap. And then because you can throw a grease bomb every turn of my main character, if you haven't quite covered the whole entryway, on the next turn, you just drop grease that overlaps with your existing one that's on fire, and it just makes this massive firewall. It's fantastic.
Oh, see, I don't think I'd even need the cauldrons because my main character can cast fireballs, so
yeah,
I'll just be able to shoot the fireballs at the grease and light it up.
Yeah, perfect. So that's my pro tip. But once I worked out that that's the way, I don't know if that's the way you're meant to play it, but once I worked out that was a viable attack option, the whole game's just turned into easy mode. It's fantastic. I'm absolutely loving my time with it. So I've gone through, cleared the goblin camp, freed the druid, and I'm off to the races. I'm absolutely loving this game. And I know we're going to get to Starfield in a few minutes, but this game has been absolutely what I've been playing this week. I love my time with Baldur's Gate 3, even before I worked out how to cheese the combat. But now I know how to cheese the combat. It's game on. I am absolutely loving this game. Nothing but praise for it. Hands down, it's my game of the year so far. I am absolutely loving this.
Well, it's funny you do say about that, about using that sort of trick or tactic or however you want to describe it, but when you say that's probably not the way you should be playing it, but that's what I like about this game is that you can go about it however, in whatever fashion you see fit. So you see that as a viable attack, and if that's how you want to play it and enjoy it, then fantastic. So, someone else might go, no, that's cheesing it a bit too much. I want to do this or that.
Yep.
And you talked before about using the worms in your head to upgrade, which I haven't done, or various things. So you can basically play it in effect the way that entertains you, and as long as you're happy with the way you're playing it, well, it's at the end of the day, it's a single player game. If you're getting the enjoyment out of it, doing it however you want to do it, well, that's what is really fantastic about the game. I find is it is exactly like that. You can just go about it and do it whatever you want. And I've sort of tried to do a bit of a sneaking route and wasn't quite good enough. So you sort of go away, do another couple of things, and then and then try and come back. And there's a myriad of different options and different ways that you can tackle each scenario.
Yeah, absolutely. It is really just an open world, like a playground, very much GTA style. Just attack it how you want, man. I absolutely second those points. And yeah, I highly encourage you to try the old grease bomb attack. It's I find it incredibly fun and enjoyable. And the bonus is like typically you're like dice rolling for a one to attack one enemy. But by using grease and fire, I'm attacking 3-4 enemies at once with a big old grease bomb. So I absolutely love it. It's fantastic. And I can't wait to just have some more time to go into Baldur's Gate. I still am in chapter 1. Like I haven't finished act 1, but by freeing that druid and killing the goblin camp, now like all the refugees are good to go back to their home. So I think now I'm essentially at the end of act 1, but 2 massive thumbs up for me. I love this. The only thing I want them to add is the gyroscope rolling, and we'll be away. That's the only one thing I need, man. But I absolutely love it. Any final points from you on Baldur's Gate 3 before we push on?
No, I think given the next game that we're going to talk about, I've pushed my way through that, so it'll probably give me a bit more time to get back into Baldur's Gate before we start getting some more releases in the next week or so.
Oh, yes, it's getting exciting. Speaking of Game 2, Willie, what is it, mate?
Game 2, Sea of Stars. I know we spoke about this a couple of weeks ago, and my initial impressions were pretty glowing, so it's probably... I've put Starfield to the side and I put Baldur's Gate to the side.
Yep.
For the sole purpose of finishing Sea of Stars. That's how much I've enjoyed the game.
That's awesome. How far in do you know? Like you're sort of halfway, or where are you at?
No, I finished it.
Oh, you finished it. Sorry, I missed that one. Great work. How many hours?
About 30 hours. So I think I had a look. I think you can sort of do it in about 24, 25 as a straight mainline run through. But if you're doing some of the, the side stuff on top of that, and there's a little mini game. I'm not sure if you've encountered that one. I think it's called there's in each of the taverns there's a little mini game that you can play.
Is it called Gwent?
It is not called Gwent, but it is equally addictive. I do have to say, I spent quite a bit of time. So you can either do just like a friendly game, or you can do a competition game. And if you beat them in the competition game, which is obviously harder, then you get extra pieces for the next time you play the game. So there's an incentive to go through and play it like that.
Is it dice rolls or a card game? How does the game work?
It's sort of hard to describe. There's basically it's like a board, but you've got 2 sides. And what you do is you have 3 turns at rolling these roulette wheels, essentially, and there's 5 wheels that'll spin.
Mm-hmm.
Now, depending on what comes up on those wheels, will allow one of your 2 characters to build up towards an attack. It'll allow you to build up a defense, or to add basically level up one of your 2 characters that you can use to attack. So you've sort of got to decide which one, and you can, after each of the spins up to the 3, you can lock in some of the spins. So if you go, I want this character to attack, I've got 2 of his attacks that have rolled on the first spin. I can lock those in and then just roll the other 3, and then you might get 2 on the next one. So you lock 4 in now, and then you just roll the last one. So there's a little bit of tactics involved in it, and the different characters you can use off to the side. So there's a mage that will do 2 attacks. There's basically a rogue or something that I suppose you'd call it, that does like a sneak attack that does damage around whatever defense there is. So there's different ways to play it, and different characters you can use depending on who you're up against and all that sort of stuff. But as I said, it did suck a bit more time, and that's why I probably put another 5 or 6 hours into the game. But I have to say, it's on Game Pass, it's on PlayStation Plus for the 2 top tier levels. So if you've got access to any of those, I can highly recommend it. Even if I'm a massive 90s RPG fan, and this just speaks to me on so many levels. But even if you're not and haven't played a lot of those sprite-based ones from the 8 or 16-bit era, I think it's incredibly enjoyable. There's a lot of quality of life things that you probably would have missed, or they didn't have in those sort of 90s games, but it's been introduced here, so it just makes for smoother gameplay. The combat's really smooth. There's a lot of different options with that. I didn't find the game overly difficult, but that's only because there's probably 4 or 5 different mechanics within the combat, once you get your head around each of those mechanics and each different character's abilities and skills, and you can swap characters in and out without a turn penalty and stuff like that. So once you've sort of worked out all that, the combat it's not unfair, but I found it wasn't difficult in that if you use all those mechanics, you'll find that you can scrape yourself through most battles,
Yep.
including the end boss battle. Um, the stories that goes with it is absolutely amazing. You get about halfway through it, and I won't spoil this, but you get about halfway through it, and there's an absolute tearjerker moment.
Yeah, right.
You know, with some of the characters in your party, and then you sort of push on after that, and the story sort of changes, and you know, there's betrayal, and there's
Oh, no, not the chef, I hope. I can't
no,
remember his name.
no, there's no betrayal from the chef. Um, but there's betrayal. There's, you know, there's characters that will betray you, but then feel bad about it, and you know, there's an entirely different world from the first one that you start in. There's stuff like that, and then again, I won't spoil this, but the I guess there's two parts to the end of the game. There's the end boss, and then there's another section just after it, and I sat there going, "What am I doing? What is happening?" Like this last section you play right before the game ends. I've I've almost never seen anything like it in a game.
Wow. I love
So
it. High praise.
I would suggest if you've got any interest in it whatsoever, push through, get to the end of it. You'll see the different mechanics at the end of it. You'll see the end of the story. It does. I will. The only drawback I have is probably the last 5 to 6 hours. Feels really padded out.
Okay.
Is the only thing I will say, and you sort of, but by that stage you're well invested in the game and you want to see it through. So
Yeah.
the last couple of hours, it just seems like they're just adding things in just to make the game longer, which is never ideal, but it does come to a pretty good conclusion in the end. So as I said, it's on both those, and highly recommended. I think they're doing pretty well from what I saw during the week. They've, you know, despite the fact that it's on those two services, they've still sold in the region of about 250,000 copies, either digitally. I don't think there is a physical version, so it might just be digital versions that they've sold on top of the money that they've got out of Xbox and PlayStation for putting it on those two services as well. So,
Yeah, that's great.
you know, good luck to them. It's a great game, and hopefully they've got enough money now that they can go away and build on what they've put together here.
Sea of Stars 2, I'm hearing.
Oh, I hope so. I'll be there day one.
I love it. To your earlier point, man, I played a few of these back in the 90s, but never really got into them. But this game I loved what I played of it. I think I almost put 2 hours in, maybe an hour 45, I think I've put into it. But I have every intention of getting back to this once the main other sort of big triple A's are out of the way. I definitely want to finish this up before we get into sort of game of the year conversations, because I loved it and loved everything you've said tonight, man. Like, sign me up. I can't wait to go on to it. And then to hit on your second point, man, I just wonder if that sales breakdown, because this is on the Switch, yeah, and it's not free on the Switch.
Yeah,
I wonder.
you have to buy it on the Switch. Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if the vast majority of their sales of that sort of 250,000 is from the Switchland, possibly. Wild speculation.
I'd have to imagine so, but I mean the other thing as well, even, you know, even people that do have an Xbox or a PlayStation that might not necessarily subscribe to any of those services, I think just the critical and public reception of the game and the high quality reviews and the commentary around it, I think would draw people in anyway to spend the money to buy it. So, to your point, yeah, I think most of the sales would be on Switch, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's a fair breakdown from the other two consoles as well.
Yeah, fantastic work, Sea of Stars. Keep it up. All right, game 3 this evening. Now, Bully, I have hit the wall here on Starfield, and this is why I bounced off and was playing so much Baldur's Gate. I have got it's a main quest objective, and I think it might be the third or fourth, go to this planet, find use your scanner, find the thing, and then run around all the lights.
Yep.
The third or fourth one, I can't find it on the planet. I've run around. I feel like I've checked the entire planet. Everything says explored, but the quest is still telling me, oh, use your scanner and go to the anomaly or whatever. And I cannot find it. I feel like I've gone everywhere on the planet. So at that point, I just bounced. I'm like, I bet in a week or two, they're going to roll out a patch for Starfield and fix up some of the main quest, specifically the main quest sort of check marks or, navigation. And so I'm waiting for them to sort of address that. Like, that to me is such a big flaw. The two things they need to fix, like, I'm across it now, that sort of fast traveling system, but I found that so confusing at the start. So hopefully a patch soon will address the complexities of fast travel for new players, but then also the main quest, like direction pointing for the main quest. Like, that's what I can't believe. You would think they would have thrown a large portion of their Q&A time against that mainline quest. And, can we navigate, do new users, can they navigate from point to point? And the answer for me is a resounding no on this one. I've tried everything I could think of. I feel like I've scoured the whole planet. And I'm honestly at the point where I'm wondering, has the game somehow bugged out? Like,
so has it got? I know with some of the previous ones, like once you're sort of within about 700 or 800 meters of it, it comes up, it changes the quest marker to the location where you have to enter. Have you got to that point, or is it just not showing the quest marker at all?
It's no, so if you're out in space, like if you're looking at the map, it's like, land here. This is like where the blue, quest marker is.
Yep.
And then I land on it and then get off the ship. And then I've got my scanner out and I run in every direction, run everywhere, expose more, what do they call them? Gravitational anomalies or whatever, those things that aren't what you're actually after, but they're kind of near it typically. I've found a bunch of those, but I almost wonder whether whatever that was, because I don't know, surely they're not doing procedural generation on the mainline quest, but maybe they are. And I just wonder whether for whatever reason my game freaked out and didn't actually spawn the room. Like, I feel
I'm not
like...
sure. The only thing I'll say is, and I only did a couple of these and got to that part, that when there's that little pulse thing around the ring of your scanner, I don't know if that's coming up for you, but that was really, really faint and almost indistinguishable the first couple of times I did it.
I've never even seen a pulse around the ring, so maybe that's exactly what I'm missing.
What it is, and I found that when you're searching for it, it's not an actual landmark that you would see on your scanner. It's not a landmark that will show up off in the distance like they do with a lot of the other stuff. But if you start walking, it'll start this tiny, tiny little pulse around the outside of the circle.
Yep.
And if you notice that, and if you start walking towards the pulse, it'll get stronger and stronger. And as I said, once you get within about 700 or 800 meters of the actual site, it will then change the quest marker from the planet in general to the exact location of the door that you've got to enter.
Yeah, that is my experience with the first couple. As I said, I never even saw that pulse thing, so I haven't been using that as intended, but the marker's always got me close enough that it would do the big reveal and, oh, there it is, go get it. Like, and you can see the tower off in the distance.
Yeah.
But honestly, I feel like I've scoured this whole planet and it's just not there.
Yeah, we'll see how you go with the little pulse thing. I think that's how I sort of found it to work. But it might get you back into it if you can get past that.
Yeah, well, now the problem is I've thrown so many hours at Baldur's Gate. I'm like, I might just finish Baldur's Gate and then, come back to this in, 3 or 4 weeks, and hopefully there's a patch or two out and they've addressed it. But I just, as I've said this since they first showed us gameplay footage, I don't like the HUD in this game. And like this, just if it is just the HUD indicator is so small that's what's tripping me up. Like, it's another knock against the HUD in this game in my mind.
Yeah, I've sort of gotten used to it. And I like with that, I was sort of the same for the first one, and I couldn't work out what was going on. And it was only when I just noticed that tiny, tiny little pulse around the scanner that I thought, oh, maybe that's what I'm supposed to be doing. And then the closer you get to it, it sort of, it gets a tiny bit stronger, but it's not pulsing like you think it would. It's just this tiny little ripple around the thing.
Does it ripple the whole way around, or is it like a ripple at 11 o'clock to let you know you need to go, left a little bit of north sort of thing?
No, it ripples the whole way around, but it will only ripple if you're pointing in the general direction of where you need to go. So if you're facing in the opposite direction, it won't come up at you 6 o'clock saying turn around. Right. It just won't show anything.
That just sounds like poor design to me. I don't know. Call me crazy. Your thoughts? Is it poor design, or am I a bad gamer?
It's one of those things. I really wouldn't say either, to be honest with you. It's just one of those things that I'm not sure whether it was by design that they tried to make it a little bit difficult for you to work. I'm not entirely sure, or whether you had to think about how you were you were doing it. I'm not entirely sure what their thought process was there, but I guess it's I can see how you'd miss it. Because as I said, I certainly did the first minute or two that I was sort of wandering around the first area. But I think once you realise what it is, then it does stick out, and you do notice what you're doing.
Yeah, right. But I guess maybe I'd just point back to something like a Splinter Cell. And it's like they had those 2 light meters, and I never heard of anybody having a problem in Splinter Cell of knowing what was going on with those light meters. That was a well-designed UI that was just apparent on its face what was going on. This maybe it's just way too subtle for me. I don't know.
Well, I suppose that's probably one of my complaints with a lot of it in Starfield, and some people might think that that it suits them with the game design and that sort of stuff. But there's a lot of things I find in the game that aren't explained in any way, shape, or form. Like I had to go away and Google how to upgrade your ship.
Yeah.
That you had to go and find a specific person near where your ship was docked, and then go into it, and then you can either do it as a sort of add these extra bits on, or you can go into the actual design part of it and design your own ship. But I probably put 15 odd hours into it, and it was only at that point that I realised, oh, actually, you can upgrade your ship, because I was getting into space battles where I just couldn't. I was just getting destroyed trying to get near planets that I needed to get to.
Yeah, well, I think I'm at a 17, maybe 18-hour mark with Starfield now. And as I said, I've just hit this brick wall, and I'm like, well, they either need to upgrade the UI, or like if it's a procedural generation issue and the room's not spawning for me on that planet, like if it's either of those two things, they need to patch it to fix it in my mind before I'm going to come back to it. But that's... Oh, sorry, go, man.
I was just going to say, it's funny, though, because that was one of the things that really pushed me back to Sea of Stars, is just in that first 7 or 8 hours that I played through Starfield, I just couldn't get into it. Like I just wasn't enjoying it. I was forcing myself to play it just because I thought, well, I think there's a good game under it, but I just can't. I just couldn't get into it. And it's funny because I polished off Sea of Stars, and I thought, all right, I'll jump back in and give Starfield another couple of hours and see how we go. Well, almost from 5 or 10 minutes jumping back into it after not playing it for almost a week. It's now got its hooks into me a little bit more. Like it seems to be flowing, and I think that was one of my criticisms last week, was the constant planet jumping and planet hopping. That there was no real, just stop and explore. But I've sort of, I've found some of the missions that I've been on do allow you to go and explore and do some extra things, and as you mentioned as well, I've sort of got my head around the fast travel around the different systems and how to use your ship a bit better. So I think utilising all that sort of stuff, and it's really got me back in there. I'm excited to get back into it and play it. So I've probably put as much hours in the last 2 or 3 days as I had in the first week, to be honest.
Oh, nice one, man. Yeah, well, on screen there's the planet that I'm just like, no, I don't know what's going on here. So anyway,
I just saw the ripple there.
Oh,
I just saw the
look at that. Oh, this is actually the different planet. I think this is the second one I did this. Yeah, this is the actual thing. But I see it now on screen. I never even noticed that when I was playing that ripple, but I can see now that ripple effect.
If you you can see it there as you're running towards the cliff face. This tiny little ripple around the circle in the middle.
Yeah, I'm seeing a future standoff here. UI. And here's a pro tip. Starfield ain't going to win it. All right, mate. What about Game 4 this evening? Tell me things.
Game 4. So Inertial Drift, I think that's how you pronounce it, but was a drop on a Game Pass a little while ago. I think it was a Game Pass or PlayStation I played it on. I can't remember now.
I'd never even heard of this game, and you put it in the docket, and I went and found this trailer, but I didn't even know it was in one of those Game Passes.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was. I'm pretty sure it was. Yeah, it was Xbox. Xbox Game Pass. It's a like arcade racer at its heart. It doesn't take itself too seriously. It's got some fantastic graphics you can see on screen there. It's something that you almost should expect out of late 90s, early 2000s with sort of the graphical style. You can see with the drifting on screen as well. So that's sort of one of the main or the main mechanic of the driving. So it's less about raw speed, and it's about throwing your car. And there's one of the buttons will literally throw your car around corners and start drifting, and it's how you maneuver yourself around the corners and that sort of stuff. But within it, there's a whole bunch of game modes as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of game modes in as well. So you can do, your standard time trial. Then you've got, a score-based one as well. So the more you drift, the higher your score gets up. And then there's cones that indicate the best line through a corner while you're drifting. And the more of those you knock over, the higher your score goes up. There's ghost cars. There's, a whole range of different driving options that you can play through, and it's really, really easy to pick up and play. And I probably only put maybe 3 or 4 hours into it, but really enjoy the time. There's a story, and I'll use that term loosely. There's a story in it, but you don't pay much attention to that. It's literally just an arcade racer, and if you've got any interest in that sort of style of racing game at all, I'd thoroughly recommend it. I really enjoyed it. For the time I put it in, and I will go back to it at some point. It was just one of those ones that, and I don't know whether you get this, Troy, at all. Is that you just, when you've been playing a big game, a big heavy game, or a lengthy game, and you either finish it or you just go, I need a break for a while. And I just occasionally flick through Game Pass or the PlayStation Plus offerings and just go, oh yeah, okay, I'll have a look at that.
Yeah.
It's a quick install. You throw it up, you play it. And this was one of those. I just saw it there and thought, oh, this is a new release. I'll have a look.
Well, yeah, grabbing these trailers today, man, it does look fantastic, and it does speak to me. Like, I don't know if you ever played. It was in Game Pass. I'm not sure if it's still there. What's it called? The Art of Rally or the Art of Drift. But that was a top down. But it sounds like it was very similar, the way in which it controls and what you said, sort of to the driving objectives and how you maneuver the car. That all sounds the same, but it's more that 3D view. So it looks cool, and I would love to go hands on. And now that you've told me it's in Game Pass, I'll be all about it. I definitely want to check this one out, man.
Yeah, it's a good little game.
Is there any multiplayer, or is it just a single player campaign?
I think there is multiplayer. I haven't. I didn't delve into that.
I could definitely
as such, but I'm almost certain that there's multiplayer in it.
Yeah, nice. I could definitely see me and the boys spending some good couch co-op time in something like this. This would be great to go hands-on with the boys. Looking forward to that. Here's one I can recommend to you, Bully. Game 5 this evening is Viewfinder. This is on PlayStation 5. And the cool thing about this game is if you see on screen there, man, you pick up a photo in the world and then you walk around with it and you use the photo to like build the level as you go. So there'll be, 2 buildings that are apart, and then you've got the photo of a bridge or the photo of a building, and you rotate it around and place it, and then you run through the photo. And when you're in there, you'll get either an item like a battery to power a teleporter, or you'll find another photo to continue the journey. So it's really got that sort of, it's a 3D platformer in a sense, but it doesn't penalize you for death, so I'm okay with it. But a really enjoyable game, and I don't know if you've ever played, what was that, Superliminal, I think it was called, from a few years back, maybe 2019, 2020 maybe. No. But that was all about shifting perspective as well. So if anyone out there has played Superliminal and enjoyed that one, I would say definitely pick up Viewfinder, because it is very much in that same vein of, it's about your perspective and where you're standing, and then, how can I use this piece to solve the next bit of the puzzle? So thoroughly enjoyable game. Highly recommend it. I've had a lot of fun with Viewfinder.
Is it just a standard game, or is it a PSVR game?
No, just a standard game. But having said that, man, it would be a very cool experience in VR, but no, it doesn't support it.
Well, that's funny, because I was just looking at the footage on screen, and it looks right for a VR game, to be honest.
Yeah, well, it didn't even occur to me, but now that you've said it, it would be epic. I think in a second here you see, that's the other thing I should say, the photos are not always the same art style as the current world. So that one there you can see is a black and white photo, but in a minute you'll see there's like, it's like a sketch drawing with a pencil. And so you like step into this sketch world, and then it'll be like a full watercolor photo, like a photo of watercolors, and you step into that and it's watercolor. So they do really nice things with environmental storytelling in that sense, and they really switch it up. And some of the challenges are really puzzling. Like, you really got to stand back and scratch your head. Oh, geez, how am I going to solve this one? So if you're puzzle minded, I highly recommend checking out Viewfinder. It's a fantastically enjoyable game. All right. Over to Game 6, Bully. Is Game 6 fantastically enjoyable?
Another one that was a bit of downtime and trying to work out what I was going to play next, and a PlayStation Plus. I'm not sure if there's a premium tier, but one of those. It was Curse to Golf. So I jumped into that. Funny little golf game. It's most normal golf games are almost a 3D or a top down. So you'd see the course that you're playing on. But as you can see in the footage there, it's a side-scrolling, almost platformy type golf game, and as you sort of play through each hole, you can see there you've got obstacles that you've got to work around. You've got explosions that'll come up, and then you've got different power-ups and things, so you can either retake shots, and different sort of things like that can help you through each level. And you've got a certain amount of shots, obviously, that you've got to get it in the hole by the end of, and get through the 18 holes. But there's a bit of a backstory to it, again, much like Inertial Drift. It's probably not much much to write home about. You sort of make a bit of a deal with the devil, and challenge. You get challenged to a game of golf, and if you win the game of golf, you get your freedom. So
Nice.
that's sort of it. But another one of those little ones that it's sitting there as a free kick on PlayStation Plus, and again, I've probably only put 3 or 4 hours into it, but I've enjoyed the time that I did play with it, and it's a little bit of something different, I guess, from the standard sort of gameplay that you sort of get, is having a side-scrolling golf game.
Yeah, nice, man. It looks great. I didn't realize it was available on not Game Pass, sorry, PlayStation Plus. So it looks cool, man. And I will check it out now that I know it's there. Does it remind you, just looking at this, and I'm trying to think of the name of it, but do you recall the name of the? It was maybe last year, and you're an astronaut playing golf on like a apocalypse sort of world.
I think I vaguely remember it, but I never played it.
Oh, okay.
I never played it. Yeah.
Man, I'm blanking on the name of that one, but it sort of reminds me of that. This is obviously 8-bit, and the other one was sort of modern graphics, but similar game there, but looks cool. Thank you very much for bringing it to my attention. And the other one I've been playing this week myself, when Starfield had me so confused, I've gone back to Diablo 4 Bully, and I just want to say, check this out here, man. It's me hitting level 50 for the first time. I was pretty happy with that. Finally got up to level 50, and I've obviously finished the main campaign now. And it's the first time when I picked this back up during the week that I understood the post game. Like, there's the little, like, it'll highlight a state or a zone in the game, and it'll put up, like 10 markers but they only last for half an hour or an hour. You've got to go in there and get your seeds. And then when you get 10 seeds, you go back to the tree, and then it'll spit out like a little bonus box with gear and stuff. So the end game now finally makes sense to me. So it's very enjoyable. There was a good point where you finish the main campaign, and then I sort of just got stuck Starfield style, where I'm like, I don't really get what I'm meant to be doing here. It wasn't clear to me. But now that's all come clear, and I'm like, oh, I could see myself getting back into Diablo 4 now as well. So thoroughly enjoyable. But yeah, I've hit level 50, and it's going pretty well. I think we've got maybe another 6 weeks. No, it'd be 4 weeks, I think, left on the current season. So if you got the Ultimate Edition and you pop that one free battle pass, you've still got another, I think, 4 weeks at this stage to get back in there and try and level that up, if that's what you're interested in. Any points from you, or you haven't touched Diablo 4 again, mate?
No, I think I played it for a couple of weeks when it first came out, and haven't really touched it since. So it's one of those ones. I feel like it should be something that entices me to get back into it, but as we've been talking about these other games, just the glut of high quality stuff that's been coming out over the last month or two, and then what we've got upcoming, I just can't see how and when I'm going to fit some time back into it.
Yeah, fair call, man. Fair call. How about we kick in a newsroom door?
Let's bust it open.
Okay. All right, mate. Who has the right to remain newsworthy this week?
Well, the first one, story number one, and we'll keep up with the Starfield talk, but Starfield from Bethesda is getting official mod support in 2024 that they have confirmed, which is interesting because we've already seen, anyone that's been onto social media in the last couple of weeks would have seen some unofficial mods that have been released with, different upscaling, different graphical sort of stuff, but keeping in line with what they did with Fallout and the Elder Scrolls. They will be dropping in some mod stuff, but it'd be interesting to see how that plays out, because I know with the console versions for both of those games that they initially were trying to charge a a fee to be able to get to the mods, and I don't think that they were ever released on PlayStation. I know they were on Xbox, but I'm not sure whether it ended up getting to PlayStation or not.
I think from memory, it did come to PlayStation, like the PlayStation 5 version of Skyrim, the Skyrim PS5 version,
Yeah.
I believe has it. But and I'm not even sure if this is true of the PS5 version, but I know for a fact that on the PS4 version, if you enabled any mods, it disabled the ability to pop trophies. So that was an instant non-starter for me. I'm like, well, I'm not, if I can't earn trophies, what's the point of playing it?
Well, and that's the thing. I was pretty much the same, but I sort of thought there's some that if they're going to be done officially, I think they could be curated to some degree to say, these ones, this section of mods ultimately break the game and how we've designed it. So if you're going to use those mods, we disable trophies.
Yep.
But if you're going to use mods that might change the graphical style, or it might up-res the graphics, or stuff like that really doesn't impact the gameplay as such, I really don't see why they couldn't just, given that they're official, these ones will pop trophies, these ones won't.
Yeah.
Go your hardest.
Yeah, exactly. They just need, like the verified tick. If it's got the verified tick, trophies won't be disabled, have at it. I'd be all about it. But until they make that change, I won't be touching them, even if they put them in there.
Yeah, and I suppose the other thing as well is, and if I recall correctly, on those other two earlier games, they were trying to charge for mods at one point. I think they got dumped pretty early, but when they initially released it and they said, "Oh yeah, we're gonna be charging for these mods," but I don't think that'll really fly, especially on the consoles when the reality is it's on Game Pass, and anybody that wants to jump on and do some mods can really just play it on the PC version on Game Pass, and then download whatever mods they want to it without anybody or without Bethesda being able to change it. They can do all the unofficial mods then.
Yeah. Yep. Great call, man. Story 2, shall we?
Story 2, I was going to say, we keeping with the Starfield storyline and just the update for the sales. So the biggest Xbox game studios launch day as of yet, saying that over 6 million players have jumped into Starfield in the first 24 hours. So, fantastic to see. I know they copped a lot of heat, Microsoft, and probably rightfully so with Redfall, but they were hinging a lot of their future on this game, I think. And if Starfield had really tanked, I think they were in a lot of trouble. But given how well it's been received, I think it's still sitting in the high 80s on Metacritic, which, some people argue, well, it's not in the 90s, it's not an all-time classic, but high 80s is still pretty good. Let's be brutally
absolutely
honest. And you've got, as I said, 6 million players playing it over that period of time. It's obviously tickling the fancy of quite a few people. So it's great to see, I think.
Yeah, and me eyeballing that article and my skepticism kicked in. I didn't see Microsoft anywhere in their statements clarify that the 6 million they counted didn't include the, 6 days early access if you paid for the Ultimate Edition?
Yeah, look, I'd imagine it would. I imagine they would.
So I reckon it's just a little misleading in the way this article's written. It's like in the first 24 hours. I think what they're saying is everybody who played it up until the end of 24 hours after day one, but they haven't said that, well, that was actually a 7-day window,
Oh, unless they're sort of counting just the time of release, and then, it didn't matter whether you'd played it the 5 days early or whether you were just playing on the official launch date. We're just counting the amount of traffic in that 24 hours. I'm not sure. But, I mean, either way, I think we're sort of splitting hairs a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
To be fair, I think, the fact that they've got 6 million players playing it, you can extend it out to the first week and say, okay, 6 million players in a week. I still think that's incredible.
Absolutely.
And would be, Sony would be happy with that for any of their games, but certainly, with Xbox have been struggling over the last couple of years to attract players into the game, to see that many people are on it and playing it either via Xbox or via PC. Either way you're playing it is fantastic to see, and hopefully it sort of gives them that impetus that they're finally on the right track, and we can see some more good quality games coming out.
I love it, mate. Time to put on your wild speculation hat. Once the Activision deal goes through, and I probably won't be this year, but for argument's sake, next year's Call of Duty is a day one launch in Game Pass. Pick a number for me. How many millions of players do you reckon on day one for the Call of Duty release, assuming it's free in Game Pass next year?
Oh, 15.
Yeah, I was going to say 20, man. I reckon a Call of Duty Day 1 release would squash this. But it's by no means. This is the high watermark so far. Tip of the cap to Microsoft. Great job, Bethesda. You've nailed it. Well played. All right, story 3 this evening, mate.
Story 3, a bit of a weird one because we've seen a couple of beta testing of the new first-person squad shooter X Defiant from Ubisoft, and it was originally due to be released in the next month or so, but they're now telling us that it's been delayed because it's failed console certification testing. So it would be, I'd imagine, there'd be some sort of game-breaking type bugs or something along those sort of lines that would cause the issue with certification, I would think.
Oh, the one I've heard in the past, and I can't remember the game or the podcast I heard it on, so this is a great story, but there was one story I heard from a developer was that their game got knocked back because they had left one, like on the when you hit pause and the button map comes up.
Yep.
They had one of the buttons, and I'm going off memory here, so this is a bit rubbery, but it was as though like they had the Xbox B button where they should have had the PlayStation circle button. Like it was that minor. It was just the button prompt on screen was for the other console and it failed certification as a result.
It's funny you say that because there is a game, and I can't remember off the top of my head which one it is, but it got released with the opposite console's button prompts in it.
Yep, there you go. Well, I know the games have failed for that exact reason before, so it could be something incredibly minor.
Yeah, and it could be something like that, but obviously, something with the way it's been designed. But I think from what I saw with the beta testing, it actually got some pretty good reception. So,
well, we went hands on with it. You played it as well, yeah?
Yeah, I did. I wasn't overly enthused with it. I thought it was, some people were comparing it to Call of Duty and that sort of level. I thought it was probably a little bit of a rung below that, just in terms of, you play Call of Duty and it just feels really solid gunplay, whereas this sort of feel to me a little bit tinny and a little bit below level. Having said all that, I understand it was a beta and that they would have done polishing and all that. So it would have been one to keep an eye out and have a look to see what it was, when it finally got released and what it was like at that point. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see if and when it does get released.
Yep, looking forward to going hands back on with it. For me, it was sitting like a solid 7.5 when I played the beta.
Yeah, probably about the same for me, about a 6 or a 7.
Yeah, nice. All right, story 4, mate.
Story 4, and I don't want to get too much into it because I know I've tried to get as little into this preview as possible, but we've got some new Spider-Man 2 screenshots that got released showing some different locations. But I think screenshots aside, I think it's just the size of the maps that it sort of indicates when you're showing that. So you've got Manhattan, but then you've also got Queens and Brooklyn in there as well, on top of what you got in the original or the first Spider-Man plus Miles Morales as well. Yep. So in essence, they're basically saying that it's twice the size of the previous game. So certainly something to look forward to. And I think we're only, about 6 weeks away from release.
Very close.
On the 20th of October, I think it does come out.
I got to say, mate, for me, the first time I saw that Coney Island screenshot that's on screen there, I immediately was looking for my phone and my cousin calling me to invite me to go bowling.
Hey, Nico. But that's sort of it. As I said, I've tried to be a bit radio silent with it, but occasionally when you do see the odd screenshot that's not going to give a lot away, I think it's probably just gives you a little bit more enthusiasm for when the game comes out, although I'm probably red hot anyway. I don't need too much more to be pushing me to play it. Yeah,
I'm red hot and now I'm drooling after looking at those screenshots. I can't wait to go hands back on with it. How about Story 5?
Story 5. So September's PlayStation Plus extra games have been leaked, and fairly disappointing in the base game releases for September, I think, and that was roundly criticised on the back of them increasing the pricing structure for that. But it looks like some of the essential games that are coming out. Sorry, I should say
Extra.
The extra. I keep getting confused with all those
Oh,
tiers.
it's so confusing. They have not done a good naming convention for their tiers.
But according to leaks, we're looking at getting Nier Replicant. So that was the remake of the original Nier, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Star Ocean Divine Force, 13 Sentinels, Aegis Rim. This is speaking to me as an RPG fanatic. Civilization 6, Sniper Ghost Warrior, Contract 2, and Unpacking. So I don't think that's a bad sort of lineup if that's what you're getting, and certainly with some of those RPGs, there's a lot of time sink into those. So
yeah,
probably a decent bit of value for money. The interesting part for me is if they end up throwing out the classic games and what those actual classic games are going to be, because I think that's been really, for mine, one of the big letdowns of the structure at the moment. The releases of those, throwing out PSP versions of classic PS2 or PlayStation 1 games, it hasn't made a lot of sense. They've got a massive library to lean on, and we just seem to be scraping the barrel with what they're throwing out.
It's reminding me of, I think they're done and dusted now, but the Xbox Games with Gold program that ran for years, the last sort of 24 months of that were just dud releases across the board. They just totally stopped pumping any good games into Games with Gold, and I'm fearing that the base tier of PlayStation Plus is starting to look that way. My other question here, mate, Civilization 6, is that in Game Pass as well currently? I think it is, but I'm not 100%.
Yeah. I reckon. I think you're right. It's funny that you mentioned the games with gold, because I think I read today that they're changing that as well. So there'll be a base level Xbox Gold, or a revisit, Game Pass, bottom tier or whatever you want to call it, that gives you what you used to get with Xbox Gold. Plus, they released, I think there was about 20 or 30 games that will be available as long as you had that base level.
Yeah.
And they'll rotate those games, 2 or 3 times a year.
Yeah.
I don't think there was much that, if you've got Game Pass or any of those, that you probably wouldn't have played. But certainly if you're on the base level and you're on a budget, that's certainly something else to look at as well. And at least you know that way what you're getting into when you're signing up for it.
Yeah, definitely. I think I've got the solution to their naming convention, Billy. How would this sound? First slot, second slot, and third slot in it.
Well, I would have thought you just make it easy. Have a base level that just gives you PlayStation Plus. Have another level that gives you the rest of the stuff.
PlayStation Plus.
Yeah, PlayStation Plus with all the rest of it. Yeah. And by the way, can we work on getting the PlayStation 3 games for
yes, please, for Australia?
Yet, yeah, Australia doesn't have it. There's other countries that don't have it. Come on.
It's outrageous.
There's some putrid internet getting around the United States. I think we're doing all right comparatively speaking.
The NBN's solid enough, you'd think.
Well, there's some areas in the States that are still on dial-up, and yet they've got access to the PlayStation Plus 3, PlayStation 3 streaming. I'm not sure how it would run on dial-up, but anyway. Bring it over. Come on.
Yep, absolutely. Interesting to note, man, that Civilization 6, I'm pretty sure it is in Game Pass, but this is like the second game in a month. Like, Sea of Stars as well was in both at the same time. It seems as though now that's becoming a more common thing, which I think is good. I love that they're doing it on both services, because it means in 6 months I'll be able to totally cancel one of them and know that I'll get them.
Well, it's funny, though, because for a long time there was almost an unwritten rule of, Xbox has got that one, we're not going to sell it to PlayStation, or alternatively PlayStation and say, well, no, it's been on Xbox, we don't want it.
Yeah, exactly.
Sort of thing. So you'd have that, but you're right with Sea of Stars, and maybe they've sort of set the trend, and good luck to them. You managed to get the money out of both of those companies, and that funds your next game. So and that might be, I don't think Civilization necessarily needs it. They'd have the money in the bank, but certainly some smaller games and indie titles, if you can get that money up front and from both companies rather than just one, and know that you're going to be able to bankroll your next game without too many issues. And then, as we've seen with Sea of Stars, if you put out a good product, people are going to buy it anyway.
Yep, and Starfield as well. Their sales were impressive considering it was a day one Game Pass as well. They did well. All right, story 6 this evening, mate?
Story 6, and I think we've got Nintendo Direct, which I think is in the next day or two. I read today it's that they're actually doing. But ahead of that, there was a bit of a leak that we may be getting a long-awaited update for a game that I don't think we've seen since the GameCube off the top of my head. But the F-Zero series apparently is ripe for release and will be previewed, I should say, at the upcoming Nintendo Direct. I'm not sure your thoughts on F-Zero, Philly.
Yeah, I'd love a new entry. You're saying it's a new entry, or they're going to just port the old one?
I think it's from the leak is it's going to be a new entry.
That's cool, man. Sign me up. I'd love to play it. I'll play it, of course, on my Switch 2 whenever it comes out.
Be waiting a while.
Yep, I will be. Nintendo can continue to wait for my money. All right, mate. What are the new releases for this week?
New releases. So September 12th, a couple of days ago, Eternite. So I don't know if you know anything about that, Troy. I don't.
No.
September 12th, we also had Nua, Play With Your Food. Again, know nothing about that one.
I'm forever trying to get my boys to stop playing with their food, so I won't be getting this one for them.
No, and then for all the systems on the 12th, we had Super Bomberman R2. Now, I reckon that might have a bit of interest. I might have to actually see what the gameplay's like for that one. I'm a bit of an old school Bomberman fan.
You and I both, man. I dropped a lot of hours. What was that? PlayStation 1, I want to say, the first Bomberman. I put a lot of hours into that.
SNES, and I think it might have been called Bombjack on the NES. So
okay, there you go.
Yeah, so certainly goes back. What we're talking 30 odd years now for Bomberman. So if it's got that same gameplay, I think they released or they tried to re-release one about 10 years ago, and it was absolute garbage. So
I went hands up with that.
Hopefully they've done something with that. Coming out yesterday, September 13th, we've got Gunbrella. I don't know anything about that one. That's for Switch and PC.
As I understand, you spend the game shooting at raindrops.
Also on the 13th for the Nintendo Switch, we've got the DLC for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, being the hidden treasure of Area Zero, the Teal Mask.
You'd be all about that, wouldn't you, Billy?
To be honest, I haven't actually finished the mainline game, so I've got, as you know, I've got a trip coming up, so there'll be a lot of time spent on the plane. I might have to jump back into to one of the Pokemon games to see my way through that trip. We've got Ad Infinitum, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, and the PC from yesterday. I don't know if the art style sort of looks okay to me, but I don't know anything about it.
I don't know anything about it, but is that a World War I hat he's got on there on the skeleton?
Potentially. Then we've got AK Xlotl, I'll say. PlayStation 5, Xbox Series consoles, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Switch, PC came out today. We've got Deceit 2 on the PC out today. We've got Dune Spice Wars out today on the PC. Monster Hunter Now on the iOS and Android out today. Stick your Android games. Solar Ash on the Xbox Series and Xbox One consoles out today. Now, I'm not sure. Is that a Game Pass game?
I reckon I have seen that cover in Game Pass. Yeah. Out in a limb, I'm not positive, but yeah, I reckon it is.
Yeah, there you go. We've also got the Crew Motor Fest on the PlayStation consoles, Xbox consoles, and PC out today. We've got Thunder Ray.
Hold on. Just before you move on from the Crew Motor Fest, I'll just remind everyone that was, what was that, Gamescom. They announced that, I think it was a 6-hour trial you could get for free. So I will be checking that out at some point.
Very good. We've got Thunder Ray on all the consoles and PC out today as well. And sort of a big one for the old school RPG fans as well coming out tomorrow is Baten Kaitos 1 and 2 HD remasters for the Switch, the old GameCube games. Probably a bit underrated on the GameCube, as were most games, because nobody played the GameCube. But they've re-released that one. I think we're also getting Suikoden, which was delayed until early next year. So a couple of decent old school RPGs coming out, one tomorrow and one in a couple of months.
Nice work, man. I love it. That's fantastic. Thank you very much, Game Informer, for your list each and every week. It fuels this part of the show, and we thank you for it. But the next part of the show is the standoff. Bully, who will fight?
Who will fight tonight? It's RPG time. And as I said at the top of the show, 2023 sees some fantastic RPGs that have been released, both Japanese and Western, including Final Fantasy 16, Starfield, and Baldur's Gate 3, which I think we've spoken about 2 of the 3 of those tonight. So we are asking, what classic RPG would you love to have remade for current consoles?
Excellent lead in. All right. Entrant number 1, Bully.
Entrant number 1, Chrono Trigger for the SNES, and this is a long wished game for many of people that played this on the original. It was a fantastic RPG on there, and probably the highlight of I think they were still just SquareSoft back in there. They hadn't merged with Enix yet for Chrono Trigger, but a couple of the other leading games they had to this was, The Secret of Mana and Secret of Evermore, a couple of games like that, and this was pretty much the culmination of their experiences there, and probably the highlight for many in terms of RPGs on the SNES. It's great story, great battle system. Great graphical style for the SNES as well, and throwing a bit of time travel as well. So got a bit of everything.
Nice. And after finishing up Sea of Stars, mate, you'd be keen for this, wouldn't you?
Well, it's funny because this is as soon as I started playing Sea of Stars, this is what it reminded me of.
Yeah,
Was the,
no
the,
doubt.
the character styles in this, not so much the art style as much, but and not even the gameplay, but just the character styles of Sea of Stars main characters and the protagonists in this game as well.
Yeah, it was a fantastic looking game. I think I put maybe an hour into it back in the day. There was just too much reading for me. I bounced off it pretty quick.
Well, that's what you had to put up with the old SNES RPGs was, and you spent more time reading than what you did actual gameplay. But that was just part and parcel, I think.
But highly rated, no doubt. A real favourite on the internet. How about Entrant 2? I don't think many people have ever praised this game, have they?
No, I don't think maybe one person thought it was alright. Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic released on originally the only on the original Xbox it came out, but this I'd never really been a massive Star Wars fan. I'd seen the movies and all that, but wasn't head over heels about any of it and then I played this game just on a bit of a whim and hadn't read any reviews on it when I did get my hands on a copy and was blown away with it. Absolutely loved it. The story was fantastic. The gameplay was fantastic. It was sort of set separate to the I think by that stage we'd had the
Prequels out as well.
Yeah, the prequels out as well by 2002. So fantastic game and a system that you really hadn't seen in a lot of games up until that point is depending on how you wanted to play it was how the story played out. So you could either play it as a good Jedi or turn to the dark side and the story how it played out and your interactions with other characters were certainly impacted greatly by your choices there. And you can see on screen there the famous lightsabers there and the customization you had with that as well. So you could have the double-sided, the single-handed. You could change the colors in it with the crystals and all that sort of stuff. So it really let you into that Star Wars world, which we hadn't really seen other than
Pod Racer on the 64.
Oh, we had the old Super Star Wars on the SNES. That was brutally difficult, but not a bad game.
Yeah, no, well, this was the first Star Wars game that really lit me up. This absolutely lit me up. And then this, for me, was the precursor for loving Mass Effect when it came out. I feel like Mass Effect lifted so many elements from this perfectly. I'm not knocking them for it. I thought it was great. But it really, my love of this game was then, sort of transferred over to the Mass Effect franchise. So this is an absolute high watermark for me back in the day. I loved it.
Yeah, and it was funny, though, because they come out with a sequel as well, but you could cheese the end of that. So
I don't think I ever played the sequel.
Yeah, with the sequel. So I think with about half an hour or 40 odd minutes left in the game, if it didn't matter which side you were on at that point or how far onto the light or dark side was, there was a scene or a series of events that you could literally flip it from totally on the light side to totally on the dark side. So without having to replay the whole game again, you could get both endings.
Wild!
By just replaying the last half an hour, 45 minutes of the game, which was a bit bizarre. But I don't think the second one was was as well received. But certainly, I know there has been discussion about it being remade at some point, but that just seems to have gone off into the
Well,
wilderness and
I
not
recall
really
the
gone too far.
I recall the story behind that, man. There was the high pitch, and it was a game developer. I'm sure it was a game developer in India. I'm totally blanking on the studio's name, but they announced that they were working on it, and then development was underway for a year, and then I think EA was their parent company, and then EA did a review of it and just canned it. They were like, "No, you're nowhere near the mark, guys. Game over." So I think
well,
this
hopefully
one's
it gets revived somehow.
hopefully some other developer picks it up at this point. But I would love for a remake of this game. Absolutely, sign me up. Game 3 this evening.
Game 3, Deus Ex. So originally, and some of the newer gamers might know the Xbox and PlayStation 3 versions that came out probably about 10 years ago. So there was Human Revolution, and then I forget the other one that came out about 6 or 7 years ago that was supposed to be a trilogy.
Mankind Divided?
Mankind, yeah. I think it was supposed to be a trilogy originally, and because the first one of the trilogy bombed, they just canned the whole lot. So it left the story hanging. But Deus Ex, the original that came out in the year 2000, this was probably one of those games that was really ahead of its time in the fact that it dumped you into a world and you could literally go and do anything however you wanted to do it. You sort of were set in, I think you got dumped in correct me if I'm wrong, but it was basically at the foot of the Statue of the Liberty in
I don't recall,
in New York, and you had to work your way around this particular area with enemies sort of roaming around, and you could go in and try and kill them. Depending on how you did it, it'd make it a bit difficult because you're obviously low level and you're up against these high level enemies, or you could stealth it, or you could do a combination of the two, or you could hack into different systems to get your way through. And it was certainly, in terms of a sandbox world, I think it was one of the real pioneers of that sort of genre of dumping you in a world and just saying, well, you decide how you want to do it and what your gameplay is going to be like and what your time in this game is ultimately going to be.
Yeah, this was such a solid game, man. I absolutely love sci-fi RPGs. Sign me up every day of the week. Just going back to the Mankind Divided comment, I thought that they did like a really condensed wrap-up via DLC. Like whatever their story vision was, I thought that they released a DLC that was like 4 hours long that tried to do whatever the following two games were meant to be in, a 4-hour window sort of thing.
Oh, you may well. I think I really got put off it just for the fact of when I don't think I could get it when it first came out, and then it sort of over the couple of months after it was released, it all sort of came out as to how it was and how poorly it was selling, and there was questions up in the air about it and all the rest of it. And that just really put me off. Is that you think why would you put time and effort into a game and a story that you're not going to have at least some sort of wrap up to it and leave a massive cliffhanger at the end, and I didn't even realise it did.
I might be wrong on that. That's my memory, but my memory's not the best. But that's my recollection of it. But it was a fantastic. I enjoyed it. I know it wasn't everyone's favorite, but as I said, future sci-fi, high tech. Sign me up. I love it every day of the week. The absolute opposite of that, though, entrant number 4.
Oh, the absolute opposite. And for anyone that's actually listened to this show before, you'll know the original Witcher. So the Witcher 3, I've tagged many a time as my all-time favourite game. But the original Witcher, which came out in 2008, so about 7 or 8 years before the Witcher 3, and then there was this, obviously the Witcher 2 after that. But PC only released the Witcher. I think for mine, I know that CD Projekt are moving on to The Witcher 4, which I think is supposed to be a new trilogy, as is to my understanding. But I'd certainly love them to go back to the original and give us a bit of a grounding as to where Geralt's story really started from. And I would have thought that given the Netflix show is continuing on and seems to have a pretty good audience, that it wouldn't take much to sort of remake it and just polish it up a bit for modern consoles and sort of cash in on the success of the show.
Yeah, well, I thought, was there not a rumor a few months back that it was under wraps they were working on porting 1 and 2 to like up-resing them for modern consoles? Is that not a rumor I recall reading on a news site somewhere?
Oh, I think I'd heard, I'm probably with you there. I've heard rumours about it, but then I think there was questions about whether it was just going to be a polish up and a re-release for current gen consoles, or whether they're going to strip it back and try and
okay.
even use some of the graphics and some of the assets that they've got in The Witcher 3 and basically redo the first two games in that style.
Well, yeah, we read a story last week or the week before that they were moving on to the Epic's engine, which I'm blanking on. Is that the Unreal Engine? No, that doesn't sound right.
Yeah, Epic's Unreal. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So I thought they were moving because what was next? The project code name, I'm totally blanking on it. They haven't named the actual game yet, but whatever that next big project was, they were moving from their internal Red engine to Unreal. So I wonder whether part of that, because you see it's relatively common that they'll do a port of an old game the first time they go hands-on with the new engine just to learn it. So, fingers crossed, maybe they'll use The Witcher 1 and 2 as their first sort of dance with the Epic Unreal Engine, and maybe we will see it. Hopefully, fingers crossed. Who knows? But Entrant 5 this week, Bully, has got to be your personal favourite, doesn't it?
I sort of cheated a little bit here, but entry 5 has Final Fantasy 6, 8, and 9. I know 7's had the treatment, or it's partway through the treatment. We did have the collection that was released fairly averagely by Square a couple of months ago with their absurd 3 o'clock in the morning drop, where all the
what was that, the pixel remasters?
The pixel remasters that the scalpers managed to get their hands on, and all the physical copies especially for the PlayStation 4, you just can't get them.
Okay, I didn't realize.
They're selling for $600-700 on eBay, which is absurd, because I would have been I would have loved to get my hands on a physical copy, and I hope it. I've sort of toyed with doing the digital version, which as you know, I'm not a big fan of, so I'm sort of holding out that in some way, shape, or form down the track and get my hands on it. But 6, 8, 9. So 6, I think, is widely regarded as the best of the Final Fantasy games, if not the absolute best, certainly in the top 2 or 3 that have been released. But also 8 and 9, I think, for my gameplay history, is that very underrated. 7 was great, but I really liked it. 7 was a bit more had the machines and a bit more futuristic and that sort of stuff, whereas 8 really went back to the sort of medieval type fantasy setting, which is always up my alley, as opposed to the futuristic sort of stuff. So I'd love to see any one of the 3 of those remade, and hopefully, given the success of the Final Fantasy 7 remake that we saw a couple of years ago, and I think early next year we're getting the next installment. So I think it's 2, the second of 3. I think we're getting. So
yes.
Again, hopefully, given that they've got all the assets in place, that it might be a bit easier for them to rework those 3 games and bring them up to a standard that we can see on a modern console.
Yeah, that would be good. All right, that's our 5 entrants this evening. Bully, while you think about it, I'll say I'm putting my chips this evening on entrant number 2, Star Wars, Knights of the Old Republic for me, please. Let's have that on a modern console. Where are you putting your money?
Oh, look, I'd probably between 1 and 2. So Chrono Trigger I'd love to see, but to be fair, I've probably got a little bit of a taste of that with Sea of Stars. So we haven't really seen anything approaching the Knights of the Old Republic since it was released. Even when you're throwing in, as you said, Mass Effect, it's sort of touched on a little bit, but not quite the same, and not the same. Having Star Wars, and as I've said before, I'm not a massive fan of Star Wars, but some of the IP that they've got in there, the classic imagery of the lightsabers and all that sort of stuff, I think you can't go past that. So I'll go with you on this one, Star Wars.
All right then, beautiful. By unanimous consent, the Gaming Enforcement Agency humbly request a remake, please, of Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic that doesn't get cancelled a year into development.
Well, come on, BioWare, you've shit the bed with some of your more recent game releases. Just go back to a classic and redo that, please.
Yes, no more. What was that? Not Automata.
Andromeda.
Andromeda. Thank you. You've nailed it. And not an Andromeda attempt, please. All right, Bully. That is it for the standoff. Now, I'll ask the question on the top of my mind. has the YouTube chat worked for you this evening, or is it once again aired out and we got nothing happening?
Nah, it's tanked again, unfortunately.
Oh, well, apologies again. One day YouTube will update its back end and we'll be off to the races again with this one. My apologies, viewers. As I always recommend, please put your comments on last week's video and we can round them up the following week. But that'll do us for the episode 82 of the Gaming Enforcement Agency. We are officially off. Bully, sir, thank you very much for your time this week, mate. Top effort, mate.
Pleasure. Now I've got to decide what I'm getting back to, Baldur's Gate or Starfield.
Baldur's Gate. Try the old grease bomb into the fire, mate. You'll absolutely love it. You won't know yourself. You'll be running through the game like there's no one's business. Hey, Bully, final question from me, mate. What else can you do with Geek Aloud?
You can like it. You can subscribe it. And you'll never miss it.
Oh, that was luck. Hey, that's something. Old Uncle Donkey. Donkey.